Thank you, Jonna. That's a suitably intimidating introduction. So I'm going to start with a couple of apologies. First of all, yes, we're about to talk about AI again, so please brace yourselves. The other apology is I know you're all really here to hear from Kyle and the world-class monitoring setup that he's got and is going to be shining a light on today. But I'm here as the opening act, and I'm going to describe a little bit about monitoring agents so we can all get on the same page and understand what we're kind of focusing on today. Before beginning, can I ask who is using AI and media analysis work today for writing, research, content categorization, sentiment, anything like that? Can you raise your hand if you are? Brilliant. I think that's nearly all of us. And another question, who is using or trusting AI to independently do critical parts of their work today? We've got a couple of hands up, right? But much smaller percentage of the room. That's not at all surprising. We know AI makes mistakes. In our systems, we want to keep humans in the loop. There can be semi-writings, hallucinations, and other problems. But I want to make the case today that for one area of PR and comms analysis work, AI is about to play a really important role, and we will be independently trusting these systems a lot more over the next couple of years. And that's the world of real-time media and social monitoring. So I want to set the stage a little bit by talking about why agentic monitoring is necessary and becoming necessary. We all know, people in this room, that the stakes are high for our clients and the organizations we work with. I'd like to use the example of any of the global tech companies. Today they have dozens of brands, they operate in hundreds of markets, and they have this fractal, ever-growing list of different issues that they need to track. For Google, this can include privacy, content on YouTube, data centers and energy, AI job displacement, DEI backlash, product launches and issues, regulation, payment security, litigations that are happening. There's just this enormous world of things that need to be tracked. That list is long and it's growing. And I spoke to the Media Insights Director in EMEA for a big global tech company recently, and he said, what keeps him up at night is getting that screenshot from an executive about a story and saying, is this a big deal? Did we catch this? Do we need to tell me about this? And that's a kind of a recurring problem I think will be familiar to many of us here. Now, where news is happening has changed too, just to make things even more complex. For example, in the world of social news, social is now has displaced TV or print as the #1 source of news for people in the UK and in the US, based on the Reuters Institute last survey. And there's now 6 social networks that have a reach for news of at least 10% of the population. And that's without even going into what's happening on Blue Sky, Reddit, and other emergent platforms. As well as that, within this platform, it's not just the news outlets themselves that are places where risk and reputation issues play out. News influencers have risen as enormous intermediaries in the space and are just as big a port of call for younger audiences as going direct to news outlets themselves. So to recap, we've got a pretty impossible situation to stay ahead of if we want to do real-time risk and reputation monitoring. There's more platforms to track, more voices to track, ever-growing number of headwinds that we need to track as well, and at the same time, fewer resources being allocated. So this is a major problem for organizations, but it's also a problem for us as people as well. I like to bring this back to Saturdays, because that screenshot of an article can arrive on a Saturday afternoon for an executive. And I was, the same person who I was speaking to, comms director I was speaking to, said having a good monitoring setup where they can understand a story as it breaks is the difference between needing to go home from the playground on a Saturday afternoon and dig into something versus just being able to forward on a report to their stakeholders and get back to playing with their kids. So there's a kind of human toll to all of the stress of real-time monitoring as well. So what's the solution? I want to introduce agentic monitoring. We've talked a lot about agents. This is an agent that's persistent and is always on. We're giving it a goal as an agent rather than a prompt and getting a response. It's designed to act autonomously to accomplish that goal. And it's able to make decisions about how to accomplish that goal and remains persistently accomplishing it until you turn it off. So if we apply that to the opportunity of agentic monitoring, if you set up an agent to track a given issue across news and social, you now have a kind of always-on threat detection. It can scale to track any number of issues. If a new issue emerges, you create another agent to track it. And it can understand your context and exercise judgment. So it's not going to flood you with alerts. It understands what's important to your business and your business context. So in 2025 in Newswhip, about 10 months ago, we launched Agentic Monitoring for the first time. We focused on scanning all news sources for articles and posts on any given topic for any of our clients. And it understands brand priorities and key messages. So it's able to make a decision about whether something is significant and an alert needs to come through. When it identifies something important is actually happening, based on significance of the source, proximity to key messages, sensitivity, rising social engagement, and a mix of other factors, it's then able to send a report right away to you. And within the report, it's going to give an analysis of what's happening. So then this would include various data points and can get someone right up to speed on how something is playing out. So there's a great many benefits to this, but I like to bring it back to Saturdays again, because if you get that report before you even get the screenshot from your client or your boss, then you're already ahead of the issue. You're able to go ahead and respond appropriately and understand it very quickly. So I think it's now time to talk about how this actually works in action. I'm going to invite Kyle up to the stage, and we're going to switch over and have a good fireside chat about this. Thank you, Kyle. Cheers, Kyle. Have a seat. So, Kyle, before we actually jump into all of this agentic monitoring, can you tell us about Shell's approach to media intelligence and your role within it?
Sure. I think some of you may know who I am. I run a reputation and risk intelligence for Shell. We have a global team of people who are looking after tracking of news, social media, effectively anything public space online, so that also expands into the GEO space that we've heard about a lot today. And I've got a broad range of stakeholders in global corporate teams, people looking at policy in different markets, and business stakeholders. There's a huge number of people that we need to service in terms of trying to understand Shell's reputation, potential risks, opportunities, and many of the different elements that you sort of discussed earlier in terms of geopolitics, changing situations. I don't need to tell anybody perhaps that the last few months, if you work for Shell, have been quite challenging and quite tricky. So this sort of fragmented media landscape and the growth of different channels and disparate channels is quite a large task to accomplish.
And do you think, question about Shell's culture, do you think that influences your approach to media analysis as an engineering company?
It does indeed, and I think Paul, also probably your big tech folks that you also speak to have a similar thing that I work for a company that is run by engineers. The CEO is an engineer. Many of the senior leaders are engineers, so they are data savvy. They are used to seeing that information, and I see that as a distinct advantage in the area that I work in, because they want to be data-driven. And traditionally, communications has been one of the areas that is most challenging for those engineers to grasp, because it mixes some of the art and the science. So it's a big job for us in analytics to bring that science to the art and help explain that to senior leaders. But it means there's a large appetite for understanding how things are traveling that isn't just based on the experience of the comms director. They want to see how things are flowing, how narratives are shifting, and how we might need to respond to it.
And when I think you've reviewed your intelligence systems over the last couple of years, and what is the outcome? Where have you moved from and to with that review?
Yeah, so we ran a large review last year of our entire intelligence ecosystem. And the goal of that review was to answer the question of, are we best in class? And my boss might be listening, so I won't say the answer. But we ran that review, and we were best in class in certain places. So we spoke to agency partners, we spoke to lots of AMEC members, I spoke to lots of people in similar positions to myself in other organizations, and we tried to get a feel for where we were perhaps ahead, where we were on par, and where we might want to be. And as a result of that bit of analysis, we did multiple sectors. We assessed where we were, and then we assessed where we wanted to be. That wasn't always at the end. So there were some sort of ambitious, perhaps, areas where we thought we wouldn't put our efforts. But the one area that was perhaps showed up as one of the biggest opportunities for us was how we can anticipate risks, challenges, things coming towards us. With AI being now a major way that people find information, various stats on zero-click Google searches, etc. I think this sort of really came to the fore and made it really prominent for us that we don't just want to see what's happened, report what happened last week, but we want to anticipate what's going to happen and how we need to respond to it immediately so we can get ahead of the story.
Mm-hmm. And I know as part of your operations, you're partnering with other professionals and companies here in the media insight space. But if we zoom into this real-time monitoring, can you tell us a bit about how you've been building trust in any AI inputs, maybe even before we get to monitoring agents? How has that journey been of trusting AI with dimensions of real-time monitoring?
Yeah, so this is always a challenge with any new system, I actually think there's two sides to this. There are many people that are skeptical and do not trust the results. There's also many people who trust the results too much and can go the opposite way and believe that something is solved with a very quick prompt and it's done. Some of us on the AMEC board have been discussing actually some of those challenges in terms of some believe that you could replace a media intelligence provider just by using one LLM, despite perhaps the data not quite being there. We effectively for our agentic pieces and where we've used AI, we parallel run a lot of that through people to test with end stakeholders, because the end goal, Paul, you sort of mentioned earlier that large ecosystem of topics growing and growing and growing. I can't actually tell off the top of my head how many we have going, because most of the time we keep them running. But it is a huge amount of topics, relate to the brand, could relate to policy, could relate to sectors that we're interested in, that we run, and that is ever growing. So the only way to keep growing that without growing resource is to scale up AI solutions. So it isn't really an option to think about doing things a traditional way. We have to do it this way. And the appetite for data at speed is ever growing. We effectively did something that Lou spoke about earlier this morning, in that we found people who are willing to try and advocate, and people that are happy to accept if something is slightly off or in a beta test, and get those people to help come along with you, and then iterate on that basis. We've got some great advocates in the company that are happy to come along that journey.
Mm-hmm. And initially, so that would have been, when we're thinking about some of the outputs, AI digest, like analysis of news, not just the monitoring agents, right? And how did you spearhead adoption of those?
Correct. So we, before we got to agents, we were running a lot of AI digests, which in some ways, I'm sorry to say for some in the room, but in some ways have negated the need for certain monitoring services. So we've got a huge range of stakeholders in different departments. We've got some people who look at aviation fuel. We've got a group of people that look after retail stations. We've got a group of people that look at hydrogen. Now, we can't be an expert in all of those areas. Those people tend to be. But we also can't go and buy a monitoring service for every single one of those service lines and lines of business. So in building in building AI digests, we're able to get for some of those people daily summaries of all the information, the most important news stories, straight to them. They read it in one email at a time that they want of their choosing, and it negates the need for additional labor-intensive monitoring processes. Mm-hmm. That doesn't mean it's replaced our monitoring service. It's still hugely important, and when we're looking at our wider brand, we need to get everything. But for many of the sort of topic-based elements, AI can now do that job good enough. Mm-hmm. It can do an 80% job, which is far better than the alternative, which maybe we have a blind spot in that space.
Yeah, what I really like is it's the economics are changing so that way more departments and divisions can now get media analysis and access it in, as you say, an 80-20 way at least. So I'm sure a lot of people here are thinking I'm crazy talking about trusting agentic monitoring, and I'm probably way out over my skis. So, but we're all building trust and testing and learning about that. So can you tell us a bit about your journey of leveraging agentic monitoring?
Yeah, so we started using agentic monitoring when you launched the agent last year, and again with this goal of how can we reduce the time spent. We have many different services across social listening, broadcast monitoring, and sort of traditional print tracking in certain markets where it's necessary. And the amount of alerts and emails that I get and that a number of people in, say, the press office get is huge. So a way of sorting that information is the biggest challenge. I'll get hundreds of alerts on different topics within a day. And when we first started using the agent, it only went to my team. So I've got a team of analysts. They are media intelligence analysts, social media intelligence analysts. They know what they're looking at. Some of them specialize in reputation risk and in different spaces. And those were the guinea pigs, if you like. Mm-hmm. So in terms of replacing some traditional monitoring that they're doing, they set up the agents, started testing them, look for the false positives, feed that back to technical teams to then adapt that and gradually build that trust in the agent. And then when we know it gets to a threshold where we believe that the number of false positives is really low, then we can finally do that final step of it can go to the end user. Will that be for us generally a communications leader in a certain space? So it can go to that leader when it gets that final hurdle. Now it's still not perfect, but it is now so rare that we get some of those false positives that even I can make a mistake. I didn't say I would say this, Paul, but I showed you just 2 days ago, actually, we got an alert from the agent. Actually, it was incorrect. It picked up a story from a while back, and it's possibly due to something changing in the metadata of that news website. But I forwarded it on immediately, so I didn't check it. And that's the point at which I realized I'd crossed that threshold where I trusted the AI more than my own judgment because I didn't read it. But that's the first one in many months. So that's how I got to that level.
Yeah. There we go. We're not perfect yet.
No.
And probably will never be, but I suppose on the other side of the balance, we have all of the time saving and the other benefits that flow. And we'll have to call the Huffington Post and give out about their changing metadata. So the moving beyond your team and winning the first advocates or people to trust this, can you tell us a little bit about moving beyond your team with agentic outputs, and how comfortable are you with that, knowing there could occasionally be a false positive coming from the agent?
So we have quite a lot of leadership buy-in. leadership buy-in and leadership pressure to adopt AI systems. We do a sort of expectation setting job with leadership that we can go this route, we can save time, we can save cost, but there will be some elements that may be incorrect. Mm-hmm. And I think we're at a space right now where the time saving really is the major pull. So if we can save 50% of our workflow based on adopting AI agents, then it's a no-brainer. We'll do it anyway. So mm-hmm. As well as the systems that we use with NewsWhip, we built an internal agent that triages some of our alerts, and so we get alerts from multiple platforms. We get it from NewsWhip, we use TalkWalker, we use many other vendors, and we get a huge number of alerts that come in. We built an in-house agent that we trained on what each of the providers is doing, what their signals are, what kind of topics they're tracking, why they're important, what it could mean. My team also then built a database of a previous month running through every 24 hours. What are the things that we would identify as high risk, medium risk, low risk? And then we trained that agent to triage for us. So now every day in the morning, somebody in my team runs through that information, runs the agent, and gets hundreds of alerts digested into one red, amber, green, what's important for us today. And what's been really interesting in that process is most of it we know about. If something is high risk, if it was something you would say, we need to immediately act on that, we know about it, because our systems tell us very quickly. The medium risk elements, we also tend to know about them. But the ones that are sort of coming through the agent that perhaps we would not have captured are the ones that we consider low risk. And we consider them low risk because they might be tangential to our industry. It may be a politician talking about a certain subject, not about our brand, but perhaps it's close in proximity. It could be different sort of pressures on executives or on leaders in certain spaces. And that's where we see a lot of opportunity for growth in terms of understanding how those could impact our business. And AI has sped up that process. Previously, we'd only have time to focus on the high and the medium risk. So we wouldn't be looking at those signals. And going back to the anticipate element I spoke about earlier, those signals are really what powers the anticipate, helping us understand what's coming next. Mm-hmm.
And are you, when looking at the business results then, we're anticipating, so there's potential soft reputation upsides, there's getting much more information through the organization, there's efficiencies. Are there any other kind of concrete benefits? Because it seems that's really validating for the Media Insights team. Your impact is increasing through the organization.
Yeah, I think it's our reputation is now that we will be the first to know about pretty much anything when it's large scale. So there are many departments in the business that look at different verticals. You've got your investor relations people, you've got your policy folk. We've got corporate security that will look at sort of security of assets, etc. But we've built such an ecosystem and many layers. I sort of refer to it as many layers of Swiss cheese, because when you're doing monitoring, there are holes. There are holes everywhere, and I'm sure everyone in this room knows that there are gaps because no one system is perfect. But if you keep layering those sort of elements of Swiss cheese, the idea is that those gaps become smaller, or that one system catches the other. And we've built that to a level that now we perhaps in some cases have too much information. So yesterday there was a piece of fake news, a deep fake that went out on Meta platforms, and many of our alerting systems went crazy in telling us that this was out there. But it builds confidence in our function as a protectors of the brand, knowing what's there, getting that straight away, and then advising the comms team on what to do about it and how to act. So we spotted that really quickly. We're able to engage the social media platforms to enact their policies. And that's really only driven by the speed at which we could do that. And what really resonated with me from your presentation earlier was that fear of an executive sending something to you.
Yeah, so on a Saturday, if you get that screenshot of a news article on a Saturday, you've already seen it, I'm going to guess. That's
correct.
You're not going to be surprised at this point, given the systems that are in place.
Indeed. Sometimes it's an AMEC Summit day and you're trying to be in a meeting and that comes through and you've got to act on it. But the info, it also gives me the confidence to be able to come to things like this and spend that bit of time, because there is a lot of technology in the background doing some of that heavy lifting and doing that legwork that provides that confidence. So I do still probably have that slight fear that something will come through before, but we're getting better and better at it every single day. And the rate at which AI is moving means that the quality of outputs that we're getting are also improving every day.
Yeah. Brilliant. I think we have a couple of minutes for questions. According to the clock, there's 4 minutes, and Jonna hasn't stormed the stage yet. So I think, am I safe for a couple of questions? One question. Oh, please, yes, down the back.
Hi, I thought that was really fascinating. What I wanted to know, Kyle, given that Shell is such a common name, when you compare sort of using the traditional Boolean search as opposed to agentic monitoring, which one you think generates more relevant results?
Great question, and the agentic monitoring is far ahead. So that is one of the biggest challenges, actually, with a brand like ours, is that the name is used in many different contexts. So I'm happy for Boolean to die, because we simply can't do it effectively enough with Boolean search alone. So the agentic elements allow us to add a context layer that means those results are far more relevant to our brand. And in my next job, I will choose a brand with a very unique name.
Brilliant. And I also wanted to say, if anyone wants to check these out, come and say hello to us. It's very easy to set up an agent to monitor anything. So if you want to come out and have a discussion with us at the NewsWhip booth, please do so. Thanks very much, Kyle.
Thank you.
Round of applause for Paul and Kyle. Great discussion, great presentation. Thank you. And then you have did I get this wrong? You guys have access for people who want to set up an agent?
Yeah, well, it's for people who have NewsWhip accounts.
Yeah.
However, we can just set one up if there's an email address and there's something topical that needs monitoring. We can easily set one up.
That seems like a really good offer. So
We'll do one for you, Jonna.
great.
Let's
Thank you.
start monitoring
How
AMEC.
about on the geo principles?
There we
The
go.
geo principles.
Amazing. See?